Are you ready to manage your work and personal world better to live a fulfilling, productive life? Then you've come to the right place. ProductivityCast, the weekly show about all things productivity. Here are your hosts, Ray Sidney Smith and Augusto Pinaud, with Francis Wade and Art Gelwicks.
Welcome back, everybody, to ProductivityCast, the weekly show about all things personal productivity. I'm Ray Sidney Smith.
I'm Augusto Pinaud.
And welcome to our listeners to this episode of ProductivityCast, where we're going to be doing another interview. And this time, we have the founder of the Roost stand with us, James Olander. Welcome to the show, James.
Hello, thanks. Good to be here.
Yeah, so a little bit about James. He found the right thing to work on by being very close to a problem that affected him personally and discovering an unsolved problem in that particular space. He had been working at a laptop for years, hunched over until it put him out of commission. That is, he got repetitive stress injury or RSI, carpal tunnel, constant neck and back pain. And James' career started actually in aerospace engineering. He worked on satellites and rockets, mainly on lightweight structures. When he came across the ergonomic crisis with his laptop, he found that no one made a compelling solution, something as portable as his laptop that could help solve the bad posture laptops put us in. He then decided to put his engineering background into practice and worked to develop a laptop stand that was indeed very portable. He put it on Kickstarter, and as they say, the rest is history. So it brought us the Roost stand. James, give us a little bit of background in terms of what the Roost stand is and how it's different maybe than from some of the other products that were out there on the market at the time.
Yeah, certainly. There's this idea that you only will use stuff if it's easy enough to use and it's not like a huge pain, because no one wants to carry more stuff or fidget with bad things. And not that we can execute at this level, but the Apple's mantra that it just works and how it's a pleasure to use. That is really important for us humans to actually use stuff. And so when I was looking around, there was nothing that was remotely close to something you'd actually want to take with you, and was not like a fidgety, kludgy thing to set up and didn't look pretty obnoxious. The idea was that, well, maybe there's a way to come up with a neat linkage and some mechanisms that allow this thing to collapse really small and it's easy, and we can just get it past that threshold where you'll actually use it, and then it'll solve that problem for you, because now you don't have any excuses and it's fun to use. So that's been really the focus this whole time on designing and working on this problem is how do you keep making it easier to use and solving this problem so that people actually use it. Like that's our measure of success, is that you buy the product and then you really do use it, and it becomes like a daily part of your daily habit. And
so tell me a little bit about your first design. I know we're in currently version 2.0. And what did you learn between the first version and the second version as you've gone on this journey to developing an ergonomic portable laptop stand? And what did you learn? What's new about the new one that was not in the last one?
Yeah, and so this was my first time really tackling an entrepreneurial endeavor, since like my own lawn business in high school. And I started this when I was about 26 or 27, as as I was saying before, that's when the ergonomic and the RSI issues kind of caught up with me. That's something I tell people too. They're like, "Oh, I don't need this thing," and if they're under the age of 25, I just tell them to just wait. Like, your body will eventually let you know when it's time. So being the first entrepreneurial endeavor, trying to make this in a fail quick and minimize like the major production risks, where if you have a lot of Kickstarters fail because they have this massive design and production challenge. And if it's your first time making something, you're probably going to fail pretty miserably when you try to scale it up to mass production. So now you start getting into injection molding, and you've got a third-party manufacturer that's building stuff that you don't really know what the end product's going to be until it actually comes from them. So did not want to be in that realm. And so the production of this V1 was actually with a laser cutter. And so the same machine that I was doing my prototyping on I could actually use that same machine to make the production parts. And when you're using a laser cutter, if you look at the first one, it's actually, everything is a flat pattern piece of material. So everything's cut just in 2D, and then we snap it all together. And that's pretty limiting in terms of like all the functionality we wanted to get in there. So we had to really like draw a line at what's the bare minimum feature here, or a couple features that we want that's going to convince people and want them to have to, that we want them to use the product with. So V1 was kind of the bare minimum, which was super portable, and it gets your screen way up off the desk. So when we say like eye level, that's about anywhere from like your screen moving up. So if it's a laptop, your screen's like on the desk, but we want that screen up at least like 8 to 12 inches up off the desk, so that the angle your head's making is really, you're not looking down anymore. You're just looking horizontal. But that is the key component for ergonomics, at least in terms of the neck. So the first one did just that, and it was actually a fixed height, so you couldn't adjust it. And I'm kind of a taller guy, so I sized it for myself, and turns out not everyone, that didn't work for everyone. So the V2 is height adjustable. And V2 also, though, was mass manufactured. So it was a whole new ball game in terms of production challenges. And so that it was good to have a bunch of history behind us in terms of, we had a customer base that was sold on the concept, and now we reintroduced a more useful version, and we could actually pull off the production without tanking the whole thing second time around.
I'm an iPad only guy. I work on my iPad, most since the second iPad. Okay. The first iPad, I still carry some of the laptop. When the second iPad came, I stopped carrying a laptop. So I remembered the first Roost because I loved the concept, and I at that time was carrying, a computer. When you sent us the second Roost to play, I was happily surprised how much went into the engineering, into the ability to raise it and lower and all that. So obviously, from a person on the outside, I can see how much time and effort went into developing something that is incredibly light, but at the same time, super durable. But share with us a little bit what went into this research, because as you said, well, I'm kind of a taller guy, so I didn't thought about this. It works perfect for me, but then for the not so tall people, did not work as great. So what went into engineering this second 2.0 version, and share a little bit more about that story.
Yeah. So the great thing about shipping even an MVP of a product is that you'll get tons of feedback. And the number one request was, hey, like this, this isn't the right height for me because I'm shorter or taller. And I mean, you wouldn't believe like how many people want one that's even like 5 inches, 6 inches taller than the current one. So, you imagine like your laptop 1.5 feet off the desk. And there's a number of reasons. One is human bodies are all different shapes and sizes. And then two, when you're moving around and working from different spots, there's no standard in desk height and chair height. being able to adapt it to wherever you're working from. Those are certainly problems that we wanted to solve. And the benefit of having the screen at eye level, and when we say eye level, that's where if you're sitting upright or you're standing upright and your head and neck are kind of neutral looking forward, the rule in ergonomics is that your eyes hit either somewhere between the top of the screen and 1/4 of the way down the screen. So what that forces your body to do is to stay upright, because now that your attention is focused horizontally, you're naturally just not going to droop and start leaning forward. And so being able to move that sweet spot up and down for people is we want to have that functionality. But kind of a funny thing though with ergonomics is that given the chance, a lot of people will adjust their ergonomic setups to a non-ergonomic position because it's kind of how we're used to slouching. It does take a bit of effort to stay in an upright, good position. So there's actually kind of a benefit of the first version in that it wasn't adjustable. It sort of forced people in a more upright posture position. And that's actually kind of an unsolved problem we have right now is how do we at scale educate people to set their setup up correctly so that it is in the best position for them. And what I've noticed is if you've worked at a big company before, they'll usually have on staff ergonomists, or they'll have someone come in and do an eval of your workstation. And so they'll get you set up right, but it's not a skill set that is super common to be able to set your workstation up yourself like that. So that's something we've been playing with for going forward is adding that education piece in an effective way. And I think that's always hard because there's tons of ways to not do it effectively and just be annoying. So that's another area we want to keep solving.
So some kind of onboarding video training maybe, or something that comes with the product that helps people understand this is what you should be doing with the product.
Exactly. Yep. Some aids of some sort. The training. Yep. Exactly. And onboarding.
Yeah, that's a real unique challenge with a physical product, as opposed to digital, where people are already onboarding on screen.
Right. Yeah. In the if you watch any of the unboxing videos, the first thing most people do, and I don't blame them because I probably do the same, is just throw out all the instruction manuals, right? Because it's like people. The expectation is that like people don't want to have to put a new wrinkle in their brain of how to use something. It should just conform to how we already use things, and that's a real interesting space there. How do you do that?
And I would imagine that it becomes a kind of a conversation with all of the other ergonomics products that are out there, that it becomes kind of a coalition based education movement where you need to work with the people who have ergonomic keyboards, ergonomic mice, and ergonomic monitors and displays and desks and chairs. I mean, like all of those things together, if everybody is beating the same drum, then I think it helps to move people in the right direction.
Yeah, that's a great point. Great idea.
When you said, well, eventually, when people told me they don't need it, eventually I told them, well, that will catch up with you. And I know exactly what you mean because I've been suffering from back pain for many, many years. And then you just said in this segment, well, people, when given the chance, will go to the bad posture. And I couldn't help but laugh looking at right now at my current setup. And I'm temporarily in some place, and yes, I am sitting in the worst position possible for my back. Okay, that I'm sure I will pay off in a little bit. But as you were saying that, I was like, oh, great, yes, he's right. I need to pay more attention to this, and I guess yes, that's a massive challenge, especially. That is one of the things on the virtues, I think, on the Roost is how light and small this is to carry it with you to be able to get a better position in other, when you're remotely and when you're working in different places. Because other than that, most people, it's really exceptional, the companies that are giving desktops over laptops, that then it's now more for the user to figure it out, that good ergonomic posture that most likely they are not.
This is my pie in the sky goal, but the way to solve humans, like human nature, to just kind of revert to the whatever the most slouchy or at the time comfortable relaxed posture is, but at the doing long-term damage. The way I have the theory, it's not been proven yet, but if you can make something that is actually just cool, like it's cool, it's fun, it's neat, and there's you have some other base human, like kind of, the reptilian part of your brain that you just want to use something cool, or you just have a kind of irrational reason to use something. If you could fire up that mechanism to counteract the other part of the reptilian brain that just wants to slouch and be lazy, then maybe you can find kind of hack that behavior by just making it a cool thing to do. And so trying to make it look neat, trying to make it easy to use is all pushing towards that cool factor. And the other part of that too is if you can make it cool enough, then all the kids would want to buy it. Because when I did most of my damage was really probably in college and in my early 20s, when I really didn't pay attention to it and set those patterns up for a lifetime of those kind of slouchy patterns. If there had been something cool and had been on my radar when I was that age, and I wasn't buying it for ergonomics, but I was just buying it because it was the in thing, I'd be really happy with that, providing that hidden benefit so that you're not trashing yourself later.
Yeah, kind of on that same vein, then maybe it becomes a game that you guys develop that's on the mobile phone and on the desktop that engages a younger generation to learn about ergonomics. And then the product is one of the tools one can use in the process of getting there. I don't know. I just see something very, very unique and interesting associated with that. For adults, like I can see you creating just a small application that prompts me to sit up. Hey, Ray, once an hour, are you slouching? And then that being the trigger for me to say, oh, yeah, you know what? Or it just, on occasion saying, are you sitting at your laptop and not using the Roost? And that just being a reminder, right? And I think that could be very, very useful to people. But for a younger generation, it has to be more dynamic. And so then it becomes, using game design to say, are you doing all of these things to get the right points to be more ergonomic in your structure throughout the school day and through when you get home? Are you getting the right lighting? Are you getting the right, sound? And is the air quality good? Like all of those things to educate them that these are things you need to think about in order to have proper biological function while you're working. And then the Roost is just a part of that. I think there's something really unique there. I like the idea of it.
Yeah, no, I do too. I've seen it done really poorly a number of ways. So I'm kind of sitting back, like trying to, maybe let others get all the ways that don't work out of the way. So when I was at a big company, they would install this software that would monitor your keyboard movements and everything like that. And it was almost like Microsoft's Clippy. Remember that amazing invention? It would like pop up on your screen and tell you to do something. And I mean, probably after a week, you're just like, how do I delete this thing? But I was also, like in my early 20s. And so that was definitely not the right way to interact with however I was seeing the world at that point. But yeah, maybe like streaks or something like gamify the process.
Yeah, I think that could be really interesting.
Yeah, the other thing though is that the payoff on it is I forget the term, but it's like I think it's called an intangible good. I think is it's like it's kind of like brushing your teeth. You don't get rid of a cavity by brushing your teeth, but if you do it every day, you're going to have an effect long term and a preventive effect. And it's what's the psychology behind that? To scare you into it, or cigarette packages with terrible photos on them. Is that how do you show a picture of like fused vertebrae to people every half hour or something like that?
Yeah, some people need fear-based marketing, and so maybe that could work. I tend to be on the positive motivation side of things and wanting to positively motivate behaviors, but there's still a business model that needs to be adhered to. So if you need to scare people to make them do the right thing, and it makes sense for the business, maybe that's the right thing to do. I wanted to just make note of the fact that you all, because it's a portable tool, this is just one thing that I noticed about the entire experience when you sent us the Roost to try out. I looked at it and I said, oh, this is really great, which is you have a Roost recovery program. So it's this little card that you include within the product, and you activate it with a code, and if the Roost is lost, someone who has found it can then just punch in this code and return it to the owner. And I just wanted to commend you for thinking through the process, because this obviously happens. And I don't know what your numbers are in terms of the number of people who activate and use this program, but I thought it was very, very forward thinking. And I hope more people who are doing mobile products like these, small electronics, small kind of products that move around with people, that they think about something like this recovery program that you guys have set up.
Yeah, certainly. That came up with this thought of like, how do we just add more value to people that are already moving around a lot? What problems are they encountering? And what's just like an easy thing for us to throw in there? And that's actually something we don't even advertise at the moment.
That's why I'm telling people. People need to know this. This is such a great value on top of the Roost itself. I mean, that's really.
Yeah, no, it's we've iterated on it a couple times. That's why I think we're still playing with the recipe. But ideally, it's something that you could put that sticker, or we give you a couple stickers, and you could put one on your laptop. You could put one on your cell phone, and it's just an easy thing to do that helps out. I'll have to look at the activation rates, but because we don't advertise it, I think a lot of people just throw it out. So it's not like a huge activation number. But I think it's probably over like 10, 15%, probably more than a typical insert, if you will.
Nobody's buying a product with the hope to sell it, but to lose it. But I agree with that. I think, I notice on my own, my home office, I have the iPads, and that's what is in front of me. But there is an old MacBook Air that is being towards the right in a desk. And what I have noticed since you sent the Roost is I raise it, and then now it's not that I use it a lot, because I don't, but it is always there. And now the screen, it is at the right height. And I didn't notice really, obviously, until the product arrived, how comfortable it is to have all the three screens at the same height instead of have them, at different things. So that was really cool for me to really discover.
Yeah, cool. That's something we've thought about, actually, is like, it's how do you give people a trial? It's hard to do a free 1 week trial with a hardware product. I mean, some companies have done it, like Warby Parker. They'll send out 5 frames to try on, and then you pick one, and then they pop the prescription lenses in it. After you send them back. So we thought about that. How do you get people the experience at home so they can try it out? And that's kind of on that list of things we'd like to still experiment with. Of do you give we just have a flat pack version that's really low cost, and they could set that up, or do you give them a free return label and allow people to demo it for a week before sending it back or something? Because I think it's once you use it, you're like, oh man, this is way better. This is like so much better than hunching over. I had no idea that was such a big deal. And I think though that like the group of people we really speak to most are those that already know they have a problem, and they found that out from either going to a physiotherapist, a chiropractor, or maybe they had an ergonomist tell them like, hey, you can't hunch at this laptop anymore. And so they've already gone through like a cycle of trying to solve this on their own. And so then it's kind of an easy sell. It's like, oh man, okay, perfect. This is it. No questions asked. Thanks. And that's like such a big group of people, I think, still, especially when you get into like a corporate environment. and now with more people that are working out of co-working spaces and whatnot. But that's not going to last forever. So having tools to broaden and get people educated about this thing is the next. We definitely want to look at that going forward too.
And I will be curious. I don't know the answer to this. This is just, mostly because you mentioned back pain, and I mentioned, and I leave the back pain, but chiropractors' offices, they tend to have all these tools for the people who go and go to get him fixed and straight. And actually, my own story was that I went to the chiropractor after everything else has failed, and this chiropractor told me, well, I can help you fix your back pain, but it's going to get worse before it gets better. Not exactly what you want to hear, but he went to his promise. Okay, it got a lot worse before it got better, but now I tend not to have the back pain. But one of the things we went into was some of those ergonomics and how I was doing some of the things, and maybe not necessarily educating or try to educate one by one, but maybe educating the people who is looking into these posters day in and day out, who are giving the solutions, who are going to be listened to because they're already bringing some of that healing.
Yeah, certainly. No, that's when a healthcare professional can recommend something, you get that immediate authority that we'd love to be right in there in that discussion at the time. As in terms of business models, started the product on Kickstarter. We're still probably really just a product, not a company, and kind of have hitched our wagons for the first two versions of the product to the Amazon and direct selling from our website. We really aren't in many different types of wholesale or distribution. So going forward, though, that entire space and how to most efficiently structure a successful business to be there at that point is something we're looking at. It's a whole different can of worms, though, in terms of how those types of industries operate. So we're still a bit of a learning process, but one that we're looking at too. We're just trying to not have the business hinged on any one type of model, diversify.
Yeah. And I can see how you could have a really strong wholesale retail relationship with chiropractors, and so that you could drop ship inventory to their shop, and they could sell them directly in the retail environment for you. And so there's lots of opportunities there. I think that's really, really awesome. We're coming up on our time together, and I wanted to just kind of get from you a sense of, you talked about being more of a product than a company, and what's on the horizon for Roost, and what do you think will come in the next version? Maybe what's going to benefit people's productivity more with regard to having this product, and what you really want to see happen with it? A little bit of vision, visionary thinking or forward thinking about what you want to happen in the next, say, 18 to 24 months with the product.
The thing that's kept the business successful is that the product is what we say it is, and that it is as useful as people hear from someone else that recommends it to them, or what we say on our website. And just reinvesting everything into making the product even better and solving even better the challenges that people face when they're working remotely. And so more adjustability, more range, so it can fit a wider range of environments and body sizes, and then also just it is not portable enough. If you're carrying it every day with you, it still is a bit bulky, and just making it smaller, lighter, more portable. So kind of, Apple went too far, but I believe Apple went too far with making things thinner. Their iPhones are bending in half, and their iPads bend in half and whatnot. So not don't go over the limit, but make it as portable and as small as possible. And then there's also other devices, so like iPads. We that's definitely a growing request of, hey, my entire workflow is on an iPad or on a tablet, and we want to have a solution for that. So we got a couple other things too that I think are pretty massive engineering challenges that, and honestly, we've been working on them for almost over 3 years now, and we're still working on them, that are solving like kind of even a bigger problem in this space. And I don't want to tip my hat on that yet, but we do customer service and R&D. That's all we spend our time on. So and it's about 95% R&D and 5% customer service. So the team is a couple people here, full-time product designer, engineers, and just continuing to make super useful, portable things that'll help you when you're working remote is what we want to just keep doing. And I think there's a few more milestones we want to hit, and I hope to hit them within 12 to 18 months. That we'll actually have something to show for it. And we'd love to come back and talk about what we're launching when we get to that point.
Absolutely. Yeah, that'd be great. So as I always like to ask people, that we like to ask people when they come on, is what's a practical tip that people can take away from listening to today's episode? And more to the point of the Roost, is there a unique use of the Roost that you've seen people? I'm curious if there's any really unique circumstances that people have used the Roost for, or in unique places, and if you have kind of a story or a tip or a trick for folks.
This is crazy. Someone was, I think, at the G20 summit a couple of years ago, and they had their MacBook Pro that they were using for all of their audio video compiling. They had that on a Roost, and then they took a photo with like all the world leaders behind it, from their point of view with the Roost in there. And so, yeah, I mean, we want to make a product that professionals, so, that if you're recording the G20 stuff, you can't have any bad equipment. So that was really cool to see that. And in terms of one thing to try, that there's a bit of a growing movement towards it, but it's this idea of like single screen, single app, meaning not just on your phone, but on your laptop screen. So it's a swing back in the other direction from multi-screens and multi-monitor. So you just have a single thing of focus, and all of your attention is on that one box, and you got all your other notifications turned off. So just kind of siloing you into a certain piece of work that when you only have a laptop screen and it's only so big, it really is great for that. And we've had a number of people really get into that type of work. And I'm actually not doing that myself now, because I have a big widescreen monitor that I have way too many tabs open on. And a couple months ago, before I got that monitor, I did all my work on just a 15-inch MacBook Pro. So everything was on that one screen, and that's all I had. And I think I'm kind of might be getting the itch to go back just to the single screen again. So I think that's fun to try if people are overwhelmed with multi-monitors, and try going just single piece in front.
Yeah, I definitely see the value in focus. I actually thought about the idea, probably back in the early 2000s, maybe late 90s, there was a movement toward having these privacy screens, either overlays on the monitor that you had in your laptop. And when you went out in public, someone looking from an angle other than directly straight on would, either block or, make it a little bit more translucent or opaque, so that you couldn't see what the person was working on. And I thought, it'd be really interesting if there were blinders like horses have running down the racetrack, and those are actually blinders that were put on the laptop screen, so that it actually blocks out peripheral vision. So when you're looking at the screen, there was less stuff around you. And I thought, that would look really, really awkward, but it would actually also be really, really useful in co-working environments where people have to put up with a lot
Moving
of ambient noise
totally.
and movement. Yeah, absolutely. So if you had kind of like something blocking your peripheral vision in some way, shape, or form, that would actually be really, really, really interesting, and it would fall in line with this whole attention movement to have a single app, single screen kind of thing. So really like that idea. With that, I want to thank James Olander from Roost Stand for joining us here on ProductivityCast. Thank you, James.
No, thanks, guys.
And so with that, if you have a question for James about Roost, feel free to head on over to the podcast website if you're not listening there, and there at productivitycast.net/065, which is the episode number. So productivitycast.net/065. There at the bottom of the page, you'll find a comment field. You can leave a comment or a question, and one of us will be glad to respond. And if you have a question for James, we'll try and get that answered for you. You'll also find the transcript in text as well as in PDF, so you can download that and read that through as well if you would like. Also on the page there on the right-hand side, you should see the subscribe option, so you can follow us across any of the favorite podcast apps that are out there, and you can go ahead and subscribe as you wish. If you have a question about personal productivity generally, or a topic you'd like us to discuss, feel free to visit productivitycast.net/contact, and there on the contact page you'll be able to leave us a voice and or written message, and we'd love to hear from you. Thanks to James Olander, founder of Roost Laptop Stand, and to my co-host Augusto Pinaud for joining me here on this ProductivityCast. If you could, please leave a rating or review in Apple Podcasts and or the soon-to-be defunct iTunes. You can leave a review also in Stitcher, and just to let us know how we're doing, help us to grow our personal productivity listening community as well. We really appreciate the feedback, and so thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode of ProductivityCast, the weekly show about all things personal productivity. Here's to your productive life.
That's it for this ProductivityCast, the weekly show about all things productivity, with your hosts, Ray Sidney Smith and Augusto Pinaud, with Francis Wade and Art Gelwicks.